Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, with Rabbi Stuart Federow from a big old H, Houston, Texas. Welcome back. Don't smoke crack, Rabbi. How are you? Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
I still don't get this don't smoke crack bit, but okay.
It's just a stupid thing. I don't know, it just sounded funny. Out in the hill country here, you know, the further out in the hill country you get, the more and more wackos you run into because...
yes, I think I know of one who lives out there.
This one doesn't smoke crack, though, so they're all good there.
Yeah, so, neither do I, thank God.
Thank God. I mean, all right, let's get rid of those buttons. There we go. Cool. So, a little bit of a late start, but that's okay. Better Nate than Lever, from what I've heard. So, tonight's topic, Paul the Deceiver.
Yes.
So tell us.
He tells people that the ends justify the means. So if the means you use are deceptive and lies, it's perfectly okay because the ends justify it. And he says it in 4 different places. So it's not like it's one thing that's isolated, or he also puts it into practice, but I can't remember exactly where that is, but that's okay.
That's okay. I mean, I know there's one where he mentioned something about, I used to call it robbing Peter to pay Paul, sort of the scene, you know, where he has something about he had not taken money from so-and-so to give money to so-and-so, or had taken money or something like that. I can't remember.
Well, there's a passage where he's really giving a speech about Jesus and all that stuff, and he's about to get mugged. I mean, people are really getting irritated at him. And so in order to get them off his back, he tells them something in order to make them fight with each other so he could make his escape. And it's just it just always struck me as a kind of a sleazy thing to do. Mm-hmm. But that's just me. At any rate, let's take a look at the number one place, and that's 1 Corinthians 9, beginning with verse 20.
All right, 1 Corinthians 9 and 20. Hold on one second. Let me get the right rodent. Okay, scroll back up to the top. I really wished I had a better software than this. Actually, I do.
I thought you had new software.
No, I'm talking about Bible software. I've been using Chabad.org and that other Bible Gateway thing, but their search tools are horrible because you can't just click. You've got to scroll all the way to the top before you can select something else. So, let's see.
Okay, you may want to look at eSword.
Yeah, I've already got that. I've got a couple other softwares, but the problem I'm having is getting it down. We'll explain to it later. Anyway, later. Where am I supposed to be looking at?
1 Corinthians 9, verse 20.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 9 and 20. Okay, here we go.
And if this doesn't sound exactly like the Jews for Jesus, Messianic Jews, Hebrew Christians, or whatever they're calling themselves this week, I don't know what will.
It's up.
Okay, so it reads, verse 20, this is 1 Corinthians 9, and unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without law, as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some.
Mm-hmm. That is truly phenomenal.
You know, pretending to be a Jew to the Jew, pretending to be a Greek to the Greeks, pretending to be, under the law.
Right.
Which I'm not under the law. I'm only under the law of Christ. But in other words, pretending to be under the Jewish law to the people who are under the Jewish law, even though he's under the law of Jesus instead of the Jewish law. In other words, he's basically telling people, as I said, that the ends justify the means. It doesn't matter what you do to get a person to convert. Getting them to convert becomes the most important thing. And that clearly sounds like Jews for Jesus, Messianic Jews, Hebrew Christians, whatever they're calling themselves this week.
Right, certainly.
Okay, so, and down below where he says, to the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Mm-hmm. The means are justified by the ends.
Rabbi, we got a caller. You want to answer it?
Absolutely.
All right,
We can
caller.
always come back to this.
Yeah, welcome to the show, caller. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from. Hello.
Hello?
Hello?
You're live on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, my name is Juan. I'm calling from California.
Yes. Are you looking for MetaShare? That was a joke, by the way.
What was that?
No, I was just kidding. Some people call this number all the time asking for MetaShare.
Right, because the numbers are
Oh,
like one
no.
or two numbers off.
Yes.
No, I actually was looking at some of your videos, and I got the number off of one of the old videos. I was just wondering if this number was still active, and if this was a number to call and ask any questions regarding like religious.
Yeah,
Go ahead, ask.
You've actually called in the middle of a live show. You're actually live on the air right now.
Oh, great. Well, my question is, as a person that was brought up Catholic, that later on, as I got older, I started moving away from the Catholic religion because I started to not believe in the Trinity, and I started to believe in more of a monolithic style religion where there is no God but God. So I started venturing off, and I did a little bit of research into the other Christianities that there were, which they're all kind of ended up being the same about. And then I did a little bit of research on the Islam religion, and that kind of like piqued my interest because it was more of kind of what I was like in my head believing, that there's no God but God, and you shall not worship anybody else but God, but it does mention Jesus and Mary and like everything that I've learned from the Bible, but it still doesn't seem right to me because of the way of like the Prophet Muhammad, like the way that they worship him, and it just something didn't seem right. And then I found I'm trying to get to my point so I don't waste much time, but
you're fine.
And then I started researching into Judaism, and I seem to kind of see the similarities between Islam and Judaism, that there is no God but God, and they all come from the Abrahamic religion type of thing, like teachings, I think.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm not that well versed in religion. But the only thing that turned me away also from this religion, not that it turned me away or anything, no disrespect or nothing, but it's just that if you are not from a Jewish family, you cannot be Jewish. So my question is,
that's not true.
I mean, like I said, I'm uninformed, so that's why I'm calling.
Sure. No worries.
So I am not Jewish. I come from Mexican parents, and I don't have any Jewish bloodlines at all. And I do not agree with like the Christian Catholic religions. But I do want to find a religion where I can how do I say this, like, because I feel like I believe what Jewish people believe, and like Muslim people believe, that there's no God but God, but I don't feel like I fall into any religion, and I feel a little bit like lost, like I don't know where to go, like, but I do believe in the Bible.
Well,
so
with
I'm
Judaism,
kind of confused as to where do I fit in.
I think you already found it. You just may not realize it so much. So you pinpointed, like with Muslims, they're closer, but they still have the Muhammad thing. Well, Judaism doesn't have a Muhammad. I mean, granted, there was a Moses, and then there were prophets, but they don't view them like Muslim would view Muhammad, or like Christianity views Jesus. And so Judaism itself, the pure Judaism is right where I think you're looking to be, and I think you've already found that. You probably just don't realize it yet. And so, Rabbi, why don't you explain to him? Stay on the phone with us for a minute, if you don't mind, and just kind of
please stay on the phone.
And that way you can kind of more pinpoint. So, if you're not Jewish, you'll as you find out, as you keep searching this path, that you're going to find out, you're going to be getting different opinions from everybody. But they're going to be generally in the same school, but there'll be different opinions within that school. Okay, so like for example, my view may not be 100% the same as Rabbi Federow's here, but they're but they're still all within the same school of thought. They're not in a different religious thought. You know what I mean? So. The way I understand it is, if you're not Jewish, you more than welcome. If you want to convert to Judaism, you absolutely can, and in doing so, you'll become one with them, and then you will be obligated to maintain all of the mitzvot that they do, and you'll be basically just considered a brother, right? On the other hand, if you just want to serve God, knowing that He's only one God, and you admit that, and you keep the the 70 plus whatever commandments that they say are like Noahide laws or whatever you call them, which are the more basic common knowledge ones, that's fine too. There's no obligation.
You're already beyond them.
Well, the point is, there's no obligation to to convert to Judaism. You don't have to convert to Judaism to actually be in a right relationship with the Creator. That's the point.
Okay.
If that helps.
All right, but let me say this, and while we're talking, would you mind, William, going to the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 17?
Where all of them became Jews.
That's right.
Fear. Yep. Okay, let me go here.
Okay, Juan, let me tell you something. Okay, first of all, welcome. Okay, the Jewish people are the oldest monotheism on planet Earth. Okay, 4,000, give or take. Some people say 3,700. Yeah. Either way, it's a very long time that the Jewish people have been around. And there's plenty of archaeological digs in the Promised Land in the state of Israel that indicate how long the Jews have been around. My point, though, is that we're the oldest, longest-lasting monotheism on Earth. And you're right. There's a belief that a person to be a Jew has to be born a Jew, but it's not true and goes all the way back to the biblical period. And in the Bible, there are people there who clearly have converted to Judaism, but it doesn't say, and Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, became a Jew. Or it doesn't say, and Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, converted to Judaism, and by converting to Judaism, he became a Jew. Okay. However, in the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 17, okay, book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 17, it's pretty clear that that's exactly what it says. Okay. 16 is the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And here, the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 17, it says, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness and feast and a good day. And that verse goes on to say, and many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell on them. Okay? It explicitly says, and many of the people of the land, that's not going to be fellow Jews. Many of the people of the land, takes place in Persia, what we now call Iran. And it explicitly says they became Jews. So even as far back as the biblical period, a person could in fact become a Jew, and explicitly says that in the book of Esther in the Bible.
Right. So in other words, you don't have to be born a Jew to become a Jew. That's the point.
Right. But the process of becoming a Jew is like if a person moves to the United States and become naturalized as a United States citizen, what do they have to do to become naturalized? They have to learn the laws. They have to learn the customs. They have to learn about the laws of the land. They have to, learn about, the Constitution of the United States. They have to learn about what it means to be a U.S. citizen. And that process of naturalization to become a part of the Jewish people is called conversion to the religion of Judaism, where you're doing exactly the same thing. To convert, you're studying God's laws given to the Jews in the Torah and at Mount Sinai, and you're learning our customs and our holidays and our holy days and our life cycle events. And it's exactly the same thing as if a person were going to move to Canada and become a citizen, what you'd have to learn to become a citizen of any other nation. Mm-hmm. Because to become a citizen of the Jewish people, okay, not the state of Israel, I'm not talking countries, I'm talking like peoplehood of the Jewish people. We're a nation. It's called conversion to the religion. So you're more than welcome. Would love to have you become a Jew.
Right, absolutely. Well, I hope that answered your question.
Great. Well, that definitely answers my question.
Awesome.
I thank you guys so much for the time and the knowledge that you have given me today. And I really do appreciate it all.
Very
from
good.
the bottom of my heart.
Believe me, it's
Perfect.
our pleasure to talk to you. And as I keep saying, welcome.
Absolutely.
Find someone to study with. Go to a synagogue. Introduce yourself to the rabbi there. Almost every congregation I know of has some form of basic introduction to Judaism course, about a year long. The introductory stuff. To convert may take longer. Okay, but the course itself is probably about a year. You meet with the rabbi, okay? Even if you're not converting, it's called shul shopping. Mm-hmm. And if you live in an area where there are a number of Jewish synagogues, then you attend every one of them and get to know them and talk to the rabbi and meet the people and see where you'd fit in the best. Okay, and it doesn't mean you're converting, although I hope you do. It's down the road. Okay, whatever comes. But if they offer classes you're interested in, take the classes. If you have questions about the Bible or Judaism or the Jewish community, write them down so you don't forget what you want to ask. Bring your list to the rabbi and ask your questions.
Speaking of which, if you've got something to write with now, I'm going to give you a website to go to that's a really great resource for studying the Hebrew Bible. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll just tell you what that is. And you may already be aware of it. So,
I have something.
Okay, this one of my favorite websites is Chabad.org. It's CHABAD.org, and they have so many resources there. They've got audio Parsha, you can listen to it, tons of them. They've actually got the Hebrew Bible there. You can actually read the Hebrew Bible there with Rashi's commentary. There's so much available there. So it'd be a great website for you to explore.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
Okay, my friend.
Again,
thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome.
Carry on with your guys' live show.
And by the way, if you want to get a hold of me, please feel free to get a hold of me through my website, whatjewsbelieve.org. Whatjewsbelieve.org. I don't always look every single minute at the email, but I eventually will see your email and I will get back to you.
Yeah, and you'll find that's actually that website is actually a very resourceful website. It'll be like a little candy store. You're gonna want to look around. I promise you. All right.
All righty then.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, Rabbi. Let's head back to where we were on
Paul.
Paul.
Where we were was 1 Corinthians 9.
Okay, let me go back here again. There it is. Okay.
Verse 20 and following. And what I was pointing out is that he's justifying his deceptiveness by claiming to be a Jew to those who are Jewish, which is, by the way, to the Jews I became as a Jew, sounds like he really wasn't a Jew to begin with. Isn't that interesting? Okay, to those under Jewish law, it says under the law, but what other law was there but Jewish law? He became as under the law, not being myself under the law. So if he's not under the law and became as a Jew, it sounds like in 1 Corinthians 9:20, he's actually admitting he was never a Jew.
Right.
He's only pretending.
It does say I became as a Jew.
I know. That's one thing that I find interesting. Okay. Another thing, I became all things to all men that I may be by all means save some. The end, which is to convert people to his Christianity, is justifies all the means to do so. And this isn't the only verse, okay, where he is talking about the benefit of deceptive practices. Okay, go to 2 Corinthians 12:16.
Okay.
2 Corinthians 12:16.
All right. There we go. Okay, there you go. But be it so, I did not burden you, nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile.
I caught you with guile.
That's interesting.
I mean, where is this guy's sense of what's right? Okay. And the word he uses there is dolos. Okay. A trick, bait, decoy, craft, wile, okay, subtlety, guile, deceit. These are all synonyms of the translation of what the word means according to Strong. So he's saying, with a decoy, with a trick, with bait, which wile, craft, deceit, guile, subtlety, he gets people to convert. He's bragging about it.
Right.
Be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, because I'm a good crafty person, I caught you with guile. So once again, he is proud of his deceit. Okay, take a look at Romans 3:7.
Okay. All right.
And here he's questioning why he gets accused of being a sinner when his lies bring people to God. His God, not God. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For if the truth of God has more abounded through my lies unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? Why are you condemning me as a sinner when my lies bring people to God? Or bring glory to God? Okay. Is this really the kind of person who really represents a divine religion?
Right.
Okay. Is this what you would want in a minister or priest or rabbi or imam or religious leader of any kind who's going to brag about their deceit? Okay. And then finally, take a look at Philippians chapter 1, verse 18.
Okay.
Oops. Where'd you go? There you go. Philippians 1:18.
All right. There we go.
Okay. Wait a minute. Did I miss that?
What then, notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached.
Philippians 1, verse 18. What am I doing? Oh, 8. Silly Stuart. What then, notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth? Pretense or in truth. He's contrasting what he does, whether he does it in truth or he does it in pretense. Christ is preached, and therein do I rejoice, yea, and will rejoice. Pretense, to pretend to do something, okay, is not a good thing. Okay? The word is prophasis, okay? Outward showing, that is pretext, cloak, color, pretense, show. So he's bragging again about getting people to be proclaiming, Jesus. Christ is preached, and therein do I rejoice, yea, and will rejoice, whether or not he's using pretense to do so or truth. He's contrasting what he does as either truthfulness or pretense, which if you contrast it with truth, is lies.
Yeah, right.
And he's bragging about it. He's saying, isn't that wonderful? I rejoice in it. I don't see why the vast majority, as a matter of fact, somebody even said this on the chat. Maybe it was Andrea. I can't remember. How did Paul gain such high regard in the eyes of Jesus' followers? Andrea, thank you. You're exactly correct. How would that happen with somebody who is so deceptive and isn't ashamed of it and brags about it?
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
to be fair, I can honestly tell you, I have met more dishonest Christians in my day, and it's not a joke. More dishonest Christians in my life than I have met dishonest agnostics and atheists.
And I'm sure there are
and that's
dishonest
and
Jews, and I'm
an
sure there are
absolute
dishonest
fact.
rabbis, and I'm sure there are dishonest everybody.
That's not the point.
No,
That's not the point.
Exactly, that's not the point.
Right.
That's exactly right. It's not the point.
Right. And I think it
You
has
know?
to do with because the overall leading message of the New Testament is you can do anything you want and get away with it as long as you repent for it. You'll always be forgiven, no matter what. Of course, Hebrews 10:26 says something just the opposite. But it's okay. It's another story. I say Hebrews 10:26 says something completely different, but Christians
Hebrews
don't. Yeah, but people
10:26.
Yeah, I think that's right.
For if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries.
Which means that you sin on purpose, there is no forgiveness. But the church doesn't teach that.
Well, actually, if you're going to go back to their whole thing about Jesus as a blood sacrifice, the blood sacrifices wouldn't work for anybody who did sin on purpose.
Right. In the
I murder somebody and I give up a cow and God forgives? No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Yep.
So Hebrews 10, whatever it is you said, 26, actually reflects that.
Right.
But, of course, they are going to ignore that.
Right,
so,
right.
You know.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. So, in a nutshell, Paul is a deceiver and bragged about his deception and thought nothing of deception, thought nothing of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I'm going to open up the phone lines. They were already open, apparently. I just forgot about it. So, phone line's on your screen, 855-95-BIBLE. So, 855-952-4253. And no, you cannot buy MetaShare here. Don't even know who.
Yeah, you're 855-95-BIBLE, and I think they're 94-BIBLE or something like that.
Maybe.
Something like that.
One thing I did find out, it is some sort of Christian insurance company. So
yeah, it is. You got to be a Christian to be part of it, and everybody pools their money, and everybody pays everybody else's bills. And it works. It works.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like Canada, all in a tight package.
Okay.
Because Canada, just like you pay high taxes, but your medical and schooling is free, but you're paying like 50% taxes on everything, but however that works out. But it does work though.
Yep.
You know. So phone line's open, and
by the way, Christo, I love Safaria.org. I think it's exceptionally useful.
There we go.
It's amazing.
All right, we have a caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hey, Mordecai from Ohio. How you doing?
Mordecai, welcome. What's the question for tonight?
So, I wanted to ask, with what we just heard about Paul and his penchant for deception, it seems like the problem would be more with the Christian canonizers rather than Paul. He wasn't writing to, like I heard from, I think, a Christian that he wasn't writing necessarily to write like the books of the Bible. He was just writing to these different communities around, and they took it and said, oh, let's make this a Bible. So with the issue then, I guess, I mean, clearly the issue is still with Paul, but like if he knew the global effect his words would have, do you think he still would have written what he did?
That's a good point. I don't think any of the New Testament writers actually knew that their script was going to end up in the Bible. That was definitely a later compilation. So, but even still, I think that if he had known that, I think he would have, but I think he would have just been more careful on the things that on the way it was all put together. But he didn't have anything to do with the way it was put together. However, he was the first author on the scene of the New Testament. So, Rabbi, what are your thoughts, Rabbi?
The one thought I have about it is, if he wasn't a recognized international leader of the Christian community, they wouldn't have cared what he wrote. So when he writes his letter to the various Christian communities throughout the Mediterranean area, it's because they want his opinion on these matters. So he's already, a leader of the Christian community.
Almost like the local.
He wouldn't have known that they're going to canonize his writings into the Christians' New Testament. Okay, but they still regard him as a international leader of the Christian church.
Right, which is why he went back to several ones over numerous times.
And he wrote the letters to them to keep them in line with what he felt was Christian dogma. His letter to the people of Galatia pretty stinging, if I remember correctly.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and hang up with you now, and hopefully that answers your question. We'll keep the phone lines open. Does that sound good?
Thank you much. I appreciate it.
You betcha. Thanks for your call. All right. Phone lines are open still. Cool. Good question. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. He was like we used to have a guy named Don, well, actually, in one of the many, it was a guy named Don Crum, who actually was an evangelist who went back and forth from Africa and to and from, and he had made like 4 or 5 trips over a period of 5 years. About once every year and a half or so, he would come back to this church that we were all going to, and he was kind of like that. He kind of had that facade of being the Apostle Paul. He would come back and address the church on what God was showing him and all this other stuff, and everybody there looked up to him like, wow, man, this dude is legit. So I think it's kind of how they viewed Paul at the time. So Shmuel, welcome back, man. How are you?
Hey, howdy.
How are you doing tonight?
Hello.
Hey, Rabbi Federow, howdy.
Hey.
So what's the question for tonight, brother?
Yeah. Hey, I had a question for Rabbi Federow. Actually, it's very much on the topic of what we're talking about tonight, about Paul.
Okay.
And I wanted his take on this. I heard this many years ago, and I wanted to hear what Rabbi Federow thinks about this. I heard that Paul was actually really an agent of the rabbis, and he...
Yeah.
And actually, I heard a more specific story for the first time in years that it wasn't Paul, that was actually Peter. Now, that Peter was the one who was infiltrating, which is why Paul and Peter was such at odds, because Peter was acting like such a heathen or whatever the case may be. And so I actually heard the same story first about Paul, but it's kind of a general story. And then I heard it more precisely described, and it really pinpointed Peter and some of the actions that he did. And I'm like, man, if that could have been, man, you never know. Maybe that was the whole point, just to try to get to steer the Jewish people away from Christianity. Because to make it look so ridiculous.
Well, more accurately, to steer the Christianity away from the Jews.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Yeah, so yeah. So, what do you think, Rabbi Federow? Have you heard that story?
Of course, it's actually found in a number of places. It's conjecture, though. I mean, there's no way to know.
Right.
I think that part of me thinks that it's a story made up by Jews who were, sour grapes, jealous. Oh well, he was meant to do it. And there's no way to know. There's just no way to know. I wish I could remember exactly what I read about it, but there's no way to know is my response.
Right. So he was either crazy and just fell for the whole Christianity thing, or 2, he was. And either way, it doesn't really matter at this point.
I think that I don't know about his conversion story on the road to Damascus, because when he has the opportunity to bring it up later in other epistles, okay, prime time to give that as an example of a conversion story, and he doesn't even mention it. Okay, so I'm not even sure that ever happened.
Right.
What was he? Was he a pursuer on behalf of the Jews to get rid of Christians, okay, and persecute them? Who knows?
Right.
Have my doubts, but okay.
Yeah.
Was he a disciple of Gamaliel? Please. He makes so many mistakes in the Hebrew. If you're going to be a disciple of Gamaliel, you better know your stuff. Okay. Nobody's going to be a direct, a student immediately under the Rebbe.
That'd be like me saying I went
unless they know what they're doing. So his making the statement of, I was a student of Gamaliel. Yeah, right. I don't believe that for a heartbeat.
That would be like me saying I went to Harvard, but I'm making like elementary, high school mistakes all across the board.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when Paul makes the statements he does, okay, in hard contrast with the writings of supposedly Jesus in the Gospels. Okay, let's see. What's the line? Jesus is talking about keeping the laws of God. And if you teach men not to do so, you'll be considered least, is a very hard
Matthew 5,
contrast.
I think. Right.
Okay. Remember, the Gospels were written after Paul,
right,
and they are in some ways, I think, a response to Paul. Okay, where Paul is telling people don't keep the commandments, and somebody wrote the words in Jesus' mouth. You got to keep the commandments.
That's interesting.
And if you teach people not to, okay, then God will consider you the least in the kingdom of heaven, whatever that means. Okay,
yeah, wow.
So I think that Paul basically clearly is responsible for changing things from Jesus, the Jewish Messiah, into Jesus, the dying, saving man God.
Very good.
Okay.
Shmuel,
and I think that there might be a lot of reasons for that. Attacking the Torah because, I don't know if I want to join this new group called Christians because I'm going to have to keep kosher.
Shmuel,
don't worry about keeping kosher.
Shmuel, I'm going to hang up real quick because I got another caller coming in, okay? Thanks, brother.
Okay, have a good night then.
Hey, good question, by the way. Thanks, bye.
Okay. All right.
Caller, sit tight. We'll be right with you. Rabbi, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, to add to that he was a plant by the Jews, okay, I think he was something else. I don't know. I could go either way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very intriguing, to say the least.
It's very intriguing.
Yeah. That was a great question, Shmuel. I appreciate that, man. Very good. Okay, we'll go ahead and take this caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Lázaro, I'm calling from Tampa Bay, Florida.
Hello, welcome.
Brother, I'm calling because I have a question for the rabbi.
Sure.
If they are Jews, why they don't practice and preach fasting?
Fasting?
Wait, what?
Yes, sir.
They actually do.
Fasting.
Yeah, they actually do. In fact, they have more
We
fasting.
have numerous holidays and events in history that bring us to do fasting throughout the year.
Right. So just to be clear, that the Jewish people have more about fasting than anybody does. So I'm not really sure I understand your question. Could you be more specific regarding that question?
I know they fast, but it's more like, one day out of the week.
It depends on
what. Am I right?
It depends on what it's for. Sometimes it's only for half a day. Rabbi, you want to go over this? The point is, there isn't a commandment in the Torah or the Tanakh that specifically tells people to do more fasting than the way they already do. So they're actually keeping the laws the way they were given. So for them to do more than that would be adding to or taking away, in my opinion. If that makes sense.
No, because in the Daniel did 21 days, Job did 8 days, and all the prophets. I can't go on not telling you about Moses, because Moses went overboard with the fasting. And it seems like not only the prophets, but everybody in the Old Testament used to fast a lot, Well,
remember something.
Real.
Which I think you have to kind of remember might have influenced that period of time. Okay. I can take an act I've got no choice but to do and turn it into something that I need to do and as a good thing. Food was hard back then. Okay. People don't realize the incredible effort that's required to make food, to have food. Now people think it grows by itself in a grocery store.
It's true.
Okay, and remember something: if you don't have the energy in your own body to do the very hard work of farming, not only are you going to do less work to farm, you're also going to have less produced by your farming because you're not working, because you can't, because you don't have the strength, because you haven't had the food.
So what does that have to do with fasting?
If people if people cannot eat because there's not as much food, then they make a virtue out of fasting.
Gotcha.
Okay, but
which makes it more scary, right? Because you have all that food, and without doing anything I mean, it can get ugly.
Well,
don't you think? Being a Jew.
I'm not. You'll have to say that again. I didn't hear you. I'm an old man who doesn't hear very well.
Yes, because you have that much food, right? Without doing any work to get it.
Today, right.
It can be harmful for you in a way. Depends. I guess a Jew can look in the food like it's harmful, right? Because me myself, I fast a lot. I fast like nobody. I'm not a Jew. In fact, I'm not a Christian. I'm just a regular guy that loves the scriptures. Mm-hmm. And I have found a very helpful the fasting.
Good.
Well, yeah, there's all actually in the modern world. There's all sorts of books on fasting. There's even a diet, called not periodic, but it's where you only eat during 4 hours out of the 24-hour day. So you'll eat between 2 and 6, but no matter when you wake up, you don't have your first bite of anything until 2 o'clock, and after 6 o'clock at night, you stop eating. There are many types of fasting. Fasting doesn't mean no food or water at all for a certain period. A fast can be a fast of only soda pop. Mm-hmm. I'm fasting. I'm not drinking soda pop.
Right.
Okay. Or, specific items. And a fast can also be I'm not eating for 24 hours a day, 6 days. It can be also, I'm not eating for 20 out of 24 hours in a given day.
I thought fasting was not eating at all, but drinking rainwater.
Okay.
Am I right?
Right, but even though you're drinking, it's still a fast. Even though you're drinking water, you're not eating food. It's a form of a fast. As a matter of fact, and I don't have the mind sharp like I wish I did, but there are also fasts of speech, where for one day you'll have a fast of speaking, where for the whole day you will not say anything negative against anybody at all. Only positive statements, only uplifting and supportive statements, and no negative or bad or demeaning or any kind of those statements will come out of your mouth.
Like Job,
and that's a speaking fast.
Like Job, that he didn't speak for 7 days.
Right. Okay. By the way,
that's a mourning, which is different. Mourning is when you don't eat, don't drink, and don't talk. That's something
mourning,
higher.
Being in mourning, as soon as you bury the person, you're supposed to go back to your house and have the Seudah Hafra'ah, the meal of being consoled. It's not a good translation. The consoling meal, whatever. Okay, so you're supposed to eat when you come back from the cemetery when you've buried your loved one. Okay. By the way, there are 25 fasts in the Jewish year. Yom Kippur is only one of them. Okay, and maybe the main one.
The feast, yeah.
But there are 25 fasts in the course of a year.
Now the Yom Kippur fast is not just for the priests; it's for everybody. So
it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Leviticus 16, 29 to 31.
I watched the show a lot. I never hear anybody talking about fasting.
Never come up before. That's why I'm glad you called in and brought up the issue.
Yeah, that's good.
Look, why do we? It's very important. Why do we fast for Yom Kippur? Okay. There are 3 lessons that we're to learn from Yom Kippur fasting. Okay, the first is to fulfill the commandment to afflict our souls. Specifically, Leviticus 23, it's right there. On this day you will afflict your soul, and Judaism has always understood what that means to be to be fasting. Okay, but there's more to it than that.
Yes.
Okay, the urge to sustain yourself, to stay alive, the urge to eat is probably the single strongest urge in a person's psyche. So the idea is that if you can fast control your urge, the greatest urge to eat for one day, certainly you can control all the other urges, which are not as powerful, the rest of the year. Okay. Another lesson about fasting on Yom Kippur is we are choosing to fast. And it gives us a little bitty inkling of those people who don't choose to fast, but they fast because they're poor, because they don't have food. And Judaism really is all about empathy and not about sympathy. Okay? Sympathy is, the poor people, they don't have food. Empathy is, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You know what it's like to be a stranger. Okay, you know what it's like to be to not have enough food on your plate because you fast every year, but only for one day, and you do it on purpose. What about all the people who fast because they've got no choice? Now you know how they feel, at least a little bit of how they feel.
Right.
So there's more to fasting than just simple self-control. There is, self-control, afflicting yourself for Yom Kippur, making empathy, not sympathy, and being able to control our urges. And I'm probably forgetting 100 other reasons to fast.
Right.
But
oh man,
we don't talk about it because it doesn't come up a lot. I'm
glad
you
you called in with it. Yeah, it's a great point because it's like it's probably one of the very few topics that we have not covered, and it's been going on 6 years now. So, thank you for bringing that up.
All right,
appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
You betcha. Thanks for calling in.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Very good. We missed a couple of the calls. Frank from Tennessee was calling in, but I couldn't take it because it would have cut this gentleman off, and I did not want to do that. So hopefully
call back.
Yeah, we'll call back. We got about 12 minutes left, so we're good.
Yep.
All right. So phone line's back open, guys. I got my finger on the trigger, man. So give us a call, 855-952-4253. Frank, if you're listening out there, shoot back at us, man.
While we're waiting for someone to call, can I just say one more thing about Paul the Deceiver?
Oh, my gosh. No.
Okay.
How dare you?
Christians it's 20 minutes after the last time we spoke about it.
I'm just kidding.
Christians come up with all sorts of different excuses for Paul. Okay. The new, what do they call it? The new, I can't remember. The new theory, new belief, new whatever, which supposedly is where Paul didn't hate the law. You just have to understand it in a different way, which is just spin and nothing more. Okay. And they always try to justify or rationalize what he said.
Right.
But if you read the quotes we brought up tonight, there's no way to rationalize around that. Not that I know of or can think of. Okay. Caller.
Especially when you read all four of those together and then the whole idea. Yeah, it's kind of hard to miss. Frank from Tennessee. How are you, brother?
Hey, Frank.
Hey, how are you, William? Hi,
Good.
Stuart.
How you doing?
Question. I guess it was more of a comment on what you were talking about before about good old Paulie.
Yeah.
Is this the reason why there possibly could, because of the conflict, several of them? James didn't really get along with them.
No.
Or
you had major disagreements between James and Paul, and not just James. It was James and Peter together. The whole controversy.
Yeah, I was just going to say Peter.
William, Acts 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there.
Right, Acts 15.
Yeah.
So I always wondered, is like, why would James? I mean, why the conflict? First, when I read about James and read it, and I'm thinking there had to have been a real reason. I'm not sure if it because he saw him going in another direction or taking this, way out of context.
Look, in the earliest in the earliest form of Christianity, you had two, for lack of a better term, movements. One was because increasingly the believers in Christianity were never Jewish and never part of the Jewish community. Increasingly, they came from the Greco-Roman, pagan, idolatrous world. Okay? And the Jewish community that were the original followers of Jesus were pushed aside and eventually considered a heresy by the early church. So Peter and Paul represent Peter and Paul. That's like the almonds. Peter and James. Peter and James were considered like the old school, okay, where you had to convert to Judaism to become a Christian, where the people who followed Jesus were never supposed to give up keeping kosher, keeping Shabbat, keeping all the laws. Okay.
Right.
Paul,
Right.
however, basically was going for numbers, knew that it was an impediment. Look, if I tell you, by the way, you want to become a Christian, you have to become a Jew. And oh, by the way, to become a Jew, how do I word this nicely? We have to cut something off of you. If you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Okay, is going to
Yeah.
push people away from conversion. Paul was going for numbers, for quantity. And so what he did was he said, let's get rid of the law and make it easier for people to become Jewish. I'm sorry. Easier for people to become Christian. Okay. And his appeal was almost purely to the heathen community, to the Greco-Roman idolatrous world, because what he said to them sounded so familiar, dying, saving man God. Okay. In the earliest church writings of Origen and Justin Martyr, okay, so as late as 250, let's say, Justin Martyr and Origen both write about their antagonist, which is Trypho or Kelsum. It's Contra Kelsum and dialogues with Trypho. So it's Trypho and Kelsum, independently of each other, 100 years apart from each other, make a statement of how similar all the Christian dogma was to Greco-Roman idolatry. And he specifically, not he, but they, Trypho in dialogues with Trypho, and which is Justin Martyr, and Contra Kelsum in Origen, both say in their book, well, gee, that sounds a lot like Perseus, whose mother was human, whose father was Zeus. So
Yeah.
the point is that James and Peter are towing the Jewish line, keep the commandments. You know, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're free to now ignore the Jewish law. And Paul, okay, you ever heard the saying, I lost the battle, but I won the war? Okay.
Yes.
I lost the battle.
Yes.
That's what happens with Paul. Paul, tell me again, Acts 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there, Paul gets pulled back to Jerusalem from wherever he is. And basically they squash him. They sit on him and say, stop telling people they don't have to keep the law. And again, Paul, being deceptive, says, oh, you're right. I won't do that ever again. And then he leaves and starts doing it again. So he lost the battle, okay, because he gave in to Peter and Paul. Why do I keep doing that? He gave in to Peter and James and that side,
Yes.
But he won the war because Christianity eventually never had to keep the law. Of course, they weren't Jewish to begin with, and so they weren't commanded to do it in the first place. So, and remember in Galatians 3, okay, you know that if you start keeping the law, then Jesus isn't an advantage to you. If you become a Jew first, then what's the point of becoming a Christian? The whole point of becoming a Christian is so you don't have to do that Jewish stuff. Okay, let's see.
Frank, why don't we go ahead and disconnect and we'll leave the phone lines open, okay?
Galatians 3.
Frank, why don't we go ahead and disconnect now and we'll leave the phone lines open for someone else, okay?
Oh.
All right, cool. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Okay, let's see. Trying to read it real quick.
We got time for one more phone call, so if you want to call in, call in. Enough time for one more question after this. So, what are you looking for? Galatians 3:15, maybe.
Could be. I can't find it. All right, at any rate, I think it's Galatians, but I can't remember where it is.
Right.
You know, don't get circumcised, because what's the point? Then if you circumcise, which means to become a Jew first, if you become circumcised and become a Jew first, then you have to keep all the laws. So what's the point of Jesus?
Right. Very good. Okay, right. We got a call. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hello, William. This is Christo Cheney.
Hey, Christo, how are you, man?
Hey, Christo, how you doing?
Welcome.
I'm doing fine, Rabbi. I'm calling you real quick. Just to say thank you real quick for calling me on the phone a couple weeks ago and helping me sort through some things. I really appreciate it.
Any way I can
William,
help?
I really appreciate your show.
Thank you, sir.
Well, you're appreciated, Rabbi. All right, I'll let you both go. I won't take up your time. Just to thank you both.
Okay, my brother.
For both of you. Have
Thank
a good
you.
week.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from. You're live on the air.
Hi, it's Holly
Hi,
from
Miss
South Dakota.
Hi, Holly. How are you?
Hi, Holly. Nice to talk to you.
Yes, I know. It's so I've enjoyed this conversation because as you know, I'm in the process of leaving Christianity, and was partway through seminary, and we were told, all of the examples that you shared about Paul, saying that you should change yourself to match the culture that you're in. It was interesting to me because that's how we're taught in Christian theological school. That's what we're supposed to do. But anyway, that was just a comment. But my question is, one thing I always wondered about Paul is, how did he live so long, and why wasn't he killed earlier? Jesus was killed supposedly for, going against or causing uprising against the Roman Empire, where here's Paul, who actually goes into Rome and, other places. So I just I always kind of doubted that Paul was the only source behind all the epistles that were accredited to him. And I just wanted to get
even Christian scholars will say he wasn't. There's only like 7, I think, that most Christian scholars actually say were Pauline.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And granted, the main thing that would be that he was never a threat to the government itself. Jesus was. So I can see that would be the big difference between the two.
And also, again, if you take a look at the narrative of Jesus in Rome and Jesus doing all these things, he was a con man. And part of being a con man is having charisma and being able to schmooze your way out of a bad situation. He had a skill, basically, that kept Paul, and it kept him alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could remember there's a passage where Paul is talking to a group of people, and they're getting mad at him, and he says something out loud that he knows will get them to argue with each other so he can escape. To me, it always struck me as a very sleazy kind of thing to do. Okay, very deceptive, very manipulative. I can't remember where that was. It may not have been a Jewish group. He may have been in Rome when he did it, or maybe it was a Jewish group in Rome. I don't remember. But his whole life seems to me, by the narrative of the New Testament, to have been very much a con artist, and con artists can even con Roman governments.
Yeah.
That would be my answer of why he lived so long. Jesus brought a lot of bad attention to himself when he overturned the tables and made a whip to beat people in the temple. Okay, that's not a way to stay out of the line of sight of the Roman government. That gets you noticed real quick.
Right.
So Paul was more politic. Paul was more political. I mean, he knew how to do that stuff. That would be my answer of why he survived so long.
Yeah, could be.
And do you think that his letters that he wrote from prison, do you think he was actually in prison in all those letters? That was, that was a thing I've always doubted as well. And it's just another way to make him such a martyr,
right?
Because he never really complained.
Well, it's also meant to idealize and possibly idolize the man. I mean, look how low he was. He was deep in the depths of the darkness of jail. Okay, but he wrote these letters. It helps to aggrandize him. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's also interesting when you look at just the different branches of Christianity. Like for instance, the Methodists and the more progressive, or I guess you could say liberal Protestant branches. don't preach as much from Paul as the, Pentecostal, E-free, evangelical.
Really, that's interesting.
I mean, yeah. I was attending a Baptist seminary because they had merged with a Methodist, and I was shocked by, how little I knew of the Pauline letters. But I don't know, William, you probably grew up hearing a lot about Paul, I'm assuming, because did you grow up pretty evangelical or
right?
Baptist? Yeah.
And I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, the international headquarters of the Assemblies of God Church. Okay, one of the colleges there, 3 out of 5 colleges in Springfield, Missouri were Bible Christian colleges, one of which is where Jerry Falwell got his bachelor's degree from. So yeah, they're pretty much into Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, thank you. That's
Thanks for calling in.
Enjoy your conversation.
Good to talk to you.
Welcome, you guys. I know. I was gonna get off of Facebook, but then I was like, no, I can't because of Tanakh Talk. I have to. I was gonna fast from Facebook, but I couldn't because of Tanakh Talk. So good job, William.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your questioning too.
Have
That's
a good
awesome.
night.
You too. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Well, Rabbi, that's definitely going to have to wrap us up for tonight.
All right.
Oh man, it has been fun. That's for sure. I'm glad the people called in tonight. Still glad we really need to start off with a topic each time. So,
William.
Yes.
I sincerely hope that you get to interview Holly about her story.
Well, Holly needs to reach out to me directly, william@tanakhtalk.com, and let's set that up. So I have no problem with that, for sure.
All right.
Very good. All right, awesome. Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Always my pleasure. Always
Peace
a
out,
blast.
y'all. And let me see if I can fall off my chair over here. Here it is. Don't forget, guys, if you don't have this, you got to get it. It's awesome. And whatjewsbelieve.org. Dang, I can't get the light out of there. There we go. Whatjewsbelieve.org. Awesome website. It's just like having a phone app on your, like the Mission Control, Jewish Mission Control app. I still have that on my Android. But whatjewsbelieve.org, you can actually just use that, save that website to your phone, and it'll act just like the app does. All you can do is look at what you want, tap on it. It opens up a whole dialogue with, with scripture references as to why human sacrifice is forbidden, any question you really want to have there. So it's really good stuff.
Go to tanakhtalk.com/donate, and please consider donating monthly to assist with ongoing and increasing expenses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you write that down? It sounded so good you were reading it off a page.
I read it right off of your schedule of events.
Oh, are you serious? I didn't even know you were looking at it. It's funny. You did good. And thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, love you, Rabbi. Love you, people. We'll talk to you a little later. See you on the other side. Take care. Have a great week.
Yep.
Shalom, shalom.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב